Hi, I'm Dwight Agnor, and welcome back to Mila for Dummies Part 3. What I want to cover in this section is very important to you. It's the most often asked questions that you get. You know, Mila is new. People don't know about it, and they have honest and sincere questions. It's hard for them to comprehend that a food like this can do the kinds of things that we say it can do. So listen carefully. These questions will be asked, and you need to answer questions. Now, before we go there, I want to say that some people are just rude, some people are hard-headed, some people are argumentative. It doesn't matter what you give them as an answer, they're just going to argue. When I find that people are just going to be negative about this and they're not open to it, I just move on. And you should too. Again, we're not here to sell Mila, we're here to share it. So once somebody has a closed mind and starts to be obstinate, just walk away and go to someone else who does want to feel better and have the world's most nutritious food. Now, the most often asked question that I get is, where's the clinical studies? Where's the proof? What is this? What am I eating? Good question, fair question. Let me explain that this is food. Let's start back at the very beginning. 500 years ago, the Aztec Indians used to live on this. It's called Salvia hispanica L seeds, right? Now, that's chia seeds. Now, don't get that confused with the normal chia seeds out there. There's about 150 varieties of chia. And the Aztec Indians in 1501 got taken over by the Spaniards. They wiped them out. They didn't want them worshiping this food because they actually worshipped it. They called it the food of the gods. So they burned all the fields, and this Salvia hispanica LC disappeared from civilization for all intents and purposes for 500 years. Now, about 20 years ago, a renowned agricultural scientist from a big university here in America went down along the equator where the Aztecs used to live, and he started working on all these varieties of chia seeds, and most of them were useless, and most of them are still useless. And he found and isolated these three amazing seeds that combined were amazing. And he found exactly where he could grow them. He could only grow them in little small areas along the equator. Had to be the right altitude and the right rainfall and the right soil. Just like growing great grapes for great wines in France. That's an analogy I use with people. If you get a $100 French red wine from some great grape in the greatest wine district in the world, what makes it great? It's the soil and the altitude and the water and the grape and all of that. So if somebody said, hey, I don't need a $100 bottle of wine, I can go to 7-Eleven and get a bottle of red wine for $5, that's kind of a silly thing to say, right? So a couple of years ago, there was hardly anything on the internet about chia. So if you go to Google chia now, you got people on the internet that'll try to sell you bags of chia real cheap, and they'll claim it's the same stuff. It's not. So Dr. Coates took these three seeds, and he found out exactly when to harvest them, how to do them, how to hand clean them, and he devised a way to micro-slice them so all the oils were available. Anyway, he took all of that research, and a lot of it he kept to himself. It was proprietary, and a lot of it he published in a book. This is the only definitive book on chia in the world. It's called Chia. It's written by Dr. Coates. Then Dr. Coates went to the FDA with Mila, and he said, here's my research, and here's the seeds. Here's all my research on the seeds. This is Mila. Well, the FDA already knew about everything in here. See, all we talked about is omega-3s, but the truth is it's not just the omega-3s here. There's a lot of fiber. Most Americans only eat 10 grams of fiber a day, for instance. There's 5 grams of fiber in every scoop of Mila. So just by adding this to the average diet, you've increased their fiber by about 50%. That's huge, right? And there's also phytonutrients. That's the plant-based nutrition, like vegetables we're supposed to eat so much of that we rarely do. Antioxidants, you know all about that, for anti-aging, etc., etc. There's also a lot of protein and calcium and all kinds of goodness in here. I won't bore you with the details. Well, the FDA's already studied all of those things. You know, hey, we know what calcium does. Hey, we know what protein does. It's a raw whole food. So they stamped their stamp of approval in a matter of months, not years, and said, we don't need any more studies. We get it. It's a raw whole food, just like a potato. And there's no warnings, no restrictions. There's nothing in this that can cause any harm. There's no allergens. There's no dangers. Now, that's not the case with everything. See, the idea that we can sell this without any warnings or any dangers or any restrictions, nothing. That's because the FDA has said, this is a food. We consider this a food. You're good to go, man. We know what's in it. It's all good. It's just pure nutrition. This is the healthiest raw whole food on earth. That's the answer to that question. Now, not everything is like that. For instance, people like flaxseed, been around for years, right? Next time you're in a health food store, if you take a package of flaxseed down, look. See, they have warnings. They have restrictions. That's what makes this so special. Pregnant women aren't supposed to eat flax. Nursing women, little babies. We don't have any of that. In fact, this is great for pregnant women, and it's great for nursing women. It's very healthy for this to be going into the bloodstream of their babies. And the next thing people ask about is, what do you mean by the highest and safest levels of omega-3s? Well, let me explain that. All people normally know about omega-3s is fish, especially wild salmon, very high in omega-3s. But there's also a lot of mercury contamination, and so we're not supposed to eat much fish. And I don't know much about science. I'm not a scientist, but I can't imagine there's going to become less mercury contamination as time goes on. I would imagine, rationally speaking, it's only going to get worse. Wouldn't you agree with that? And also, farm-raised salmon is not the same thing. So don't go thinking you're buying salmon. Let me tell you something. There's a reason that farm-raised salmon is 1/4 of the price. Next time you go to the grocery store and you look in the seafood thing there, look at the salmon. It says in small print, color added by feed. What does that mean? That means they're keeping and raising these salmon in a cage in the ocean. So they're having to feed it man-made stuff. And so those fish aren't eating the wild stuff in the ocean and the krill and the whatnot. So they don't have anywhere near the omega-3s as wild salmon. And their color of their meat is not the same. So they have to add food coloring to it. And they won't reproduce in captivity. So they have to add hormones to it. There's a lot of things you can look up and find out about. But don't mistake farm-raised salmon for wild salmon, nowhere near the amount of omega-3s. And what about fish oil capsules and things like that? Well, let me just say this. I just saw on Good Morning America, and you can Google this, just Google fish oils and lawsuits, and it'll all come up. Again, I'm not a scientist, I'm not making any judgments, but this was the story on Good Morning America, that a big group of environmentalists has filed a massive lawsuit against all 10 of the biggest fish oil companies. And I'm talking about people like CVS and GNC, big companies, right? And they claim that there's dangerously high levels of PCBs, and that causes cancer and birth defects and whatnot. Now, I don't know if there is or not. I'm just telling you what they're saying. And the fish oil industry comes back and says, yes, there is PCBs in this oil, but it's not at a dangerous level. Well, whether it's a dangerous level or not, I don't know, but it does raise a red flag. The point is, there's no mercury contamination in this, and there's no PCBs in this. And it is the highest levels because gram for gram, there's 8 times more omega-3s in this than there is in wild salmon. And there's no danger, see? So it's the safest one. There's no PCBs, and there's no contamination. There's no warnings like there is with flaxseed oil and all of that. Now, what do we mean by the best delivery system? This is very important. Well, Dr. Coates has devised and patented a way to micro-slice these seeds. So see, these are the only seeds that are sliced like this. And the seeds have so much antioxidants that the oils won't smell bad. See, if you leave a piece of fish out overnight, it'll smell like fish because it's the oxidation, right? Because it doesn't have antioxidants. But there's so much antioxidants in these seeds that even though they're sliced and the oils are open, there's no smell and there's no taste to it. That's a big deal. So let's suppose you go to the grocery store and you buy these big, thick, waxy omega-3 capsules or fish oil capsules, right? Now you got to eat these capsules and they have to dissolve. Well, not all of that oil is going to be absorbed. So there's a percentage of it that will and a percentage of it that won't. Let's make up something. Let's suppose you got a big, thick, waxy capsule and there's 600 milligrams of fish oil in there. And let's suppose you eat that, and let's suppose only 50% of it gets absorbed. Now, you've really only absorbed 300 milligrams, right? Well, this doesn't have to dissolve. You see, these seeds are already sliced and the oils are already... So once you eat Mila, your body just sucks all that oil and almost all of the oils in these seeds gets absorbed. Now, there's 3 grams of omega-3s in 1 scoop of Mila. So that means if you've got 300 milligrams being absorbed from that fish oil, as an example, you would need 10 of those fish oil capsules in those big, thick, waxy capsules to make the same thing as one. So here we go again. The highest and safest levels of omega-3s with the best delivery system. I hope all of those things really help you out. And if you have any questions, go to myplanbworks.com and listen to what the doctors have to say there. They explain it pretty well, too. I'm Dwight Agnor. Thanks for joining us at Mila for Dummies, Part 3.